All right. Well, I think maybe we can go ahead and get started. Um, I just wanted to just kind of briefly go over what the agenda is going to look like, and I imagine we'll have a few more people jump on here while we're talking. Um, I I think we'll just start out with introductions. Um, I want to keep it really brief for our introductions. I'm going to read off the
Sure.
kind of the list here, the email list that's here on Zoom, um, and then if you could just say your name and keep it to like a sentence or a phrase, why, what issue really matters in this election for you. And I'm going to challenge everyone to not say, get Trump out of office, because I think everyone's going to say that otherwise. But what your core issue is,
Sure.
and but keep it really brief. So we'll do those introductions, and then we will hand it off to the candidates to speak. We'll have a question and answer section where you can ask questions. We'll have the candidates speak first, and then we'll do the question and answer section after that. And then we'll talk a little bit about volunteering. And then our ward will just kind of talk about and highlight the work we've been doing. And that's pretty much the agenda. So why don't we just start it off? Since I'm talking now, I'll just start off. I'm the ward chair of 17B, and I guess my issue is always like income inequality. I feel there's a real problem with wealthy interests taking advantage of people. And my name is Jared Ames. And then we'll go to I guess I'll include the candidates here too. Just Senator O'Neill.
Yes, Senator Bill O'Neill, District 13. I just want to thank you, Jared, and everybody tuning in. And I really appreciate all the Zoom expertise. And now I know about backdrops. I'm going to step my game up here. But yes, so I too am very concerned about income inequality. Here's the deal. Like several years ago, we passed a bill. I wasn't there, and Representative Armstrong wasn't there, but basically giving the uber wealthy of our state these tax breaks. It was under Richardson, and it was very much to bolster his presidential aspirations. And a bill that I always sponsor, and I will continue to sponsor, is to repeal that tax breaks for the ultra wealthy, especially because we can't count on oil and gas anymore. So that's the deal. We have to come up with alternative sources of revenue. I'm tired of being at the mercy, we all are, of oil and gas, boom and bust. So whether it's legalizing marijuana, developing alternative energy, for me, repealing those tax breaks. So that's kind of a hopefully not too lengthy check-in. But I love being your state senator and have an opponent, and I just love this energy too, the way that people are really engaged. So thank you.
Cynthia.
Okay. So this is the last half of my first term. I'm running for re-election on the Public Regulation Commission. We regulate utility companies like the gas, electric, and water companies. They are monopolies, so they don't experience competition, as you know. So we stand in the place of competition and have to scrutinize every time they want to raise their rates, because their rates do not have competitive pressures to keep them down. What's before us right now is a paradigm shift in the way electricity is going to be generated in our state, moving away from fossil fuels under the Energy Transition Act into fully renewable sources by 2040 and by 100% clean sources by 2045. To me, the big issues before the commission right now is making sure that transition occurs on time. And while that doesn't seem like that should be so hard, given that the fact that the law requires it. There are many ways that utilities can drag their feet, and there are many ways that commissioners can alter the requirements on the ground. My concern is, and I'm opposed, I have a Republican opponent in this race that I wasn't expecting because we haven't had one in 4 cycles, but now we do. There is a split on the commission. A majority right now, 3 of the 5 commissioners are not friends of renewable energy, notwithstanding the vote last week of unanimous approval of going all renewable and the replacement resources for the San Juan generating station in the Four Corners area. Many of you have heard of that coal plant that's being closed down. And we had a variety of options before us. And we picked one that happened to be all solar plus battery storage technology. The thing is, that one option also happened to be the only option that left the coal plant standing. And 3 of the commissioners would like to see that plant being operated in the private sector with carbon capture and storage technology applied to it, which is, in my opinion, very experimental and doesn't solve the problem of shutting coal plants. So that vote on that issue was, on that case, is misleading. So my concern about my race is, even though the candidate herself is someone who hasn't won races in a while, she does have name recognition. And I believe, and this is just my intuition here, my concern about the general energy picture in our state is that she'll probably be supported strongly by the oil and gas lobby because, or, you know, a PAC, of course, because otherwise I don't know why she'd be running, because she's not particularly qualified, and I don't know that she has good options unless she's very well funded. So that's why I wanted to make sure, well, I wanted to make sure and get out and talk to people anyhow, but I also wanted to let people know that things are not as smooth sailing on the commission as they need to be. Probably the fossil fuel industry sees a weakness on our commission because we have a majority this way. One of the commissioners is termed out, but her replacement is an unknown quantity in a way. He's an associate of hers, but he has been on the city council in Santa Fe, and I'm told has voted in favor of renewables. But we'll see. Otherwise, it'll be a struggle. Several efforts I've made so far have been thwarted by these 3 commissioners to try to require more transparency into the operations of utilities. So without going into big detail, that's kind of what the lay of the land is. So I'm taking this race very seriously. A lot of people have said you're the incumbent, there's more Democrats in your district than Republicans, so don't worry. But I don't feel that's responsible under these circumstances. So that's it.
Good reason.
All right, great. So my thought is that we'll just go through and do a quick introduction, and then the candidates will speak for 5 minutes. So I was just letting the candidates just do a quick introduction here. So we'll do.
What about Deborah?
Yeah, Debbie. Yeah, if Debbie can do her quick introduction, and then we'll do a 5 after.
Sure. Thanks. And thank you, Jared, for organizing this. I really appreciate it. And I'm Debbie Armstrong, and I am finishing my 3rd term as your representative. And just real briefly, my focus is on health. I like to say healthy families, healthy communities in the broadest sense possible. I'm not talking just about strictly medical care, but I have a 45-year background in healthcare in one way or another. And so that's the lens I put on for everything. And I'm looking forward to saying more about that. So thank you. Thanks for having me.
Great. Muriel.
Yeah, hi. I'm a precinct 15 chair here in Ward 17B. I have a lot of teaching experience. I guess my issues are, my number one issue is the environment, moving toward a more green and energy efficient environment using solar and wind. But I also want to see our teachers treated as professionals, the professionals that they are. I'm really down upon, dissing our teachers. I think they work very hard. I also want to see a safe way for our kids to go back to school during COVID. I appreciate the way the governor's been handling our state with respect to that. And I guess I'm also a pusher for bilingual education. I think that that is one of the things where our state could really be #1 in. And the bilingual programs that we have that start in kindergarten are wonderful. I'd like to see them expanded and continued. Thank you. And thanks for being here.
Carlos.
Hi, my name is Carlos Flores. I've been working in the community for a while. I was with public health for about 12 years. I mean, as everybody's talked to, I have lots of concerns. I'm really here to listen today and see what some of the issues are that are coming up in the community so I can gauge how I can be better involved. Thank you.
Right. Ed.
Yeah, hi, I'm Ed Lamb, Muriel's worse half. I'm mostly concerned, with the 4 years in the White House with dipstick and everything going to hell in a handbasket. He's created a new swamp. He's always talking about clearing the swamp. He's actually created a swamp of billionaires running organizations that they don't believe in and try to run them into the ground. So if there's anything we could possibly do about that. And locally, I'm just kind of tired of seeing how much money we pay for cops that have killed people unnecessarily. So to me, that's a huge issue. When are we going to get the cops under control?
David.
Hi there, I'm David Wood, and with the North Valley Coalition, also in this ward. Happy to say that we have had Senator O'Neill and Deborah, and our PRC candidate also attended our last in-person meeting. So we're happy to have hosted them as well. My concerns are previously stated: equality. I like civility and honesty. And as a retired accountant, I'm now concerned about what will be the new normal for the state of New Mexico's budget with our oil up in the air. So those are my main concerns.
Margie.
I'm using my daughter's iPad. My name's Mary Jane.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
And I'm impressed with the politicians sticking to a 1-minute discourse here. It's my first meeting. I'm really concerned about guns on the street. We need to take care of that before we can expect the police to have any kind of safe zone. And concerned about evictions, cutting off water, electricity for the people that aren't going to have money through no fault of their own. That's all.
Mike.
Yeah, Mike Smith. I voter, slightly active in the precinct, and I guess the main thing I'm interested in is repudiating the false slogans, misinformation, and twisting and destruction of public discourse by either flat out lies or next to it. And you can't have honest discussion on policy as long as people are throwing around a lot of misleading information and empty slogans. And I did enjoy the line on PBS last night because Dan Foley was asked about Steve Pierce saying that he was going to make the shutdown into an election issue in November. And Dan Foley said, well, when Steve Pierce threatens to come after you, I don't think you have a lot to worry about based on his recent campaigns.
Carl. Maybe it's Carol. I'm sorry. I misread it. Carol. I think you're on mute.
Right. Carol it is. I'm with the Greater Gardner Neighborhood Association, and I'm also with the Sierra Club. And I have two things. One is the militarization of the Albuquerque police. We here on my street recently had an episode where they descended upon us like it was a war zone. And I complained to the mayor and did not hear a single word back. I was thinking I should get my video camera out and start shooting them because I was afraid they were going to kill one of us. Okay, that's the Albuquerque police. The other issue is the proliferation of plastic. With the Sierra Club, and I head up the Zero Waste Action Team, and plastic, plastic, plastic. Oh my God, it's running rampant. That's it.
Dwayne.
I'm Dwayne Longenbaugh, the chairman of, or the precinct chairman of Precinct 195. I don't think that you can address a lot of the issues we're talking about here over time if we don't find a solution to the climate change. If something isn't done about that, we're going to be dealing with climate refugees on a bigger scale than anybody has ever had to even think about before. So I think in the back of our mind is getting off of fossil fuels and doing whatever we have to minimize the impact of climate change.
Marge.
Hi, Marge Longenbaugh. I think, the assistant to precinct chair of 195. And my two concerns are getting back to respect for truth and science. That's it.
Leroy.
Hello, I'm here with my wife, Patricia. We're new to this meeting. Our concerns, I think one is undoing the policy issues, the policy that have been levied by this administration on EPA and the Fed and all the things that have gone unnoticed in terms of policy changes that this administration has put upon us. And then more locally, kind of the near constant property crime we see, especially here, I know in the North Valley, there's a constant presence of property crime that goes on here. So we're here to listen.
Marcos.
Hi, my name is Marcos Paz. I'm not a resident of this ward, but I was invited to as a guest to listen to the concerns of this community. I'm in the Old Town area, and I would just say, and I've been involved in a lot of community organizing over the years. Right now, I'm a member of Cambio. We work on cultural and educational programs. Some of my big concerns in general in the Albuquerque community is around police reform, making our city safe for immigrants, and respecting science. I'd say that those are among my top ones. Thank you.
Paul.
Hi, I'm Paul Sauter. I'm a scientist, and I'm here as chair of ward chair of 25A. I'm also the Democratic Party of Bernalillo County secretary and chair of the Ward and Precinct Development Committee. So I'm here to make sure everything runs smoothly here. And and help where I can. My main issue in this election is climate change. My state senator is Senator Antoinette Cedillo Lopez, and she's proposed a 4-year ban on the issuance of new fracking permits. And I'd be very interested to hear what the candidates have to say about that. Thank you.
Tova.
Yes, my name is Tova Endritz, and I'm the precinct chair of Precinct 193. I'm very appreciative for having such wonderful people representing me at the state senate, state legislature, and PRC. My interests are human rights and criminal justice issues, that we don't always think the solution to every problem is to lock up more people longer, to restore more reproductive rights issues in terms of abolishing an old law that's on the books that would punish people for performing abortions. And I expect probably to come up and testify before the legislature this year in favor of a bill that I think Antoinette Cedillo Lopez is going to introduce to keep ICE from making arrests in courthouses, which scares people from using the court system, either as victims or witnesses or defendants. You know, the courts serve an important function, and no part of the community should be afraid to go and utilize the courts. So there's going to be that bill coming up as well. Thank you all for your good work.
Tracy.
Hi, my name is Tracy Jordan. I'm just a citizen. Deborah and Bill are my reps, and Dwayne is my chair. And I guess I'm just crawling my way toward retirement. And the only thing that comes to mind right now for me to say of what's important is, you know, the concepts, that whole paradigm of money being speech and corporations being people. I feel so many issues are just trickled down and trickle downs from that. And, you know, our power as individual people or small groups at whatever level, you know, you want to maybe talk about is so diminished when, you know, if Exxon is a people and I'm a people, Exxon certainly has me outmatched. And if Betsy DeVos's money is speech, you know, she definitely can speak a lot more than me. So those are my two big issues. Thanks.
Alex.
Hi, I'm Alex Applegate. I'm the ward socialist and bike activist. And I'm mainly concerned right now about the failure of Congress to mitigate the incoming depression and homeless problem that they're creating with the potential of 30 million Congress. I'm most interested in hearing what our candidates are going to do about that. Thank you.
And Roger.
Yes, I'm on. I opened it. Yes, energy justice. And so I'm with Dwayne and Paul. Mr. Biden certainly better keep the climate change issue on the front burner during this this fall's election campaign. I also work volunteer my services in food justice, food security with a community center and community garden in the South Valley.
Jane.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jane Yee, and Roger and I are relatively new to the Democratic Party activities, although we've voted Democratic. And my issue is moving this party to the left so it is truly a party of the working people. We welcome the Democratic candidates, Representative Armstrong, Senator O'Neill, and Commissioner Hall. Thank you for joining us. We're hoping, or I'm hoping personally, that you are moving your agendas on the working people's issues on income inequality, energy, justice, climate justice, and racial justice. And we also have Liz Copeland here.
Liz Copeland,
Liz, oh great.
Yeah, I'm sorry it's a little late, but thank you for sharing your computer with me, Dave and Roger. And there's so many things that are challenging, but I do think that climate change is a big one. And I think that it's been very exciting to hear people who are willing to say to the forces that be that I'm sorry that oil and fracking are so much part of our economy, but we cannot afford to stay where we are, or we're doomed. And I also am very concerned about wealth inequality. I actually don't know how many truly wealthy people who live in this state, and that would be an interesting thing to know, how many millionaires and multimillionaires that live here, because I don't know if there's a lot of them or not, but because it seems to me like Elizabeth Warren's wealth tax is a really good idea, although I don't know if you put it on just in New Mexico, if all the wealthy people will just leave. And I also feel like the issues around education, they do go to issues around the families that it's come from, and how able that family is to provide what the kids need in terms of basic things like shelter and good food and attention to them. And one of the things that I know from having been a teacher in Albuquerque Public Schools is that there's such a gap between what private schools can offer their students in terms of critical thinking, and so much that happens. I was surprised because I went to APS, graduated in 1970 from Valley High, and there's really so much short-term studying for the test, and then you forget it. And I don't know how you start getting just quality critical thinking in all of the schools, and to change that paradigm.
All right, did I miss anybody?
Is Juanita still here? Juanita was in for a minute. She lives across the street from me, but I don't see her on the roster anymore.
Oh.
She works in mental health.
Okay.
All right.
Maybe she'll jump back on. Okay. So we'll have the candidates speak. Each for maybe about 5 minutes. On the things they've worked on. Their just in general. And then those of you who want to ask questions, you can go onto the chat section. If you look at the very bottom on Zoom, and you can type in your question. Please type your name, your like who the question is to, and then the question. Once each candidate speaks, then I'll just go to those questions in the order that they're written in. And I guess we'll does anyone have any I guess, yeah, why don't we just go ahead and start with Bill.
Well, Jared, thanks again. You know what? I have to say, after we're done, I need to talk to you how to get this level of attendance. This is really amazing. This is about the 4th Zoom meeting I've done in the past 2 weeks, and I've never seen attendance like this. And I know, well, it's a ward meeting as opposed to a precinct meeting, but I would love to know your secret, because this is awesome, okay? And then I guess there's a lot that people mentioned. A lot of this mirrors my own concerns I've mentioned in my outset about income inequality. It's just ridiculous. There are wealthy people, Liz, in this state. And if you make $200,000 and over, again, Bill Richardson gave them a huge tax break. We leave $300 million on the table, all right, because of this very ill-conceived bill that again, neither Representative Armstrong or I were up there at the time, and believe me, the last time I sponsored this, it was the last long session, Senate Bill 50. I couldn't get a hearing on this bill, and as many of you know, our Senate is changing dramatically. So I'm very hopeful about the future moving forward on this issue of income inequality. Just in the way of background, my focus is criminal justice reform, which reflects my own work-life experience with incarcerated men and women, adults, and then later in my career with juveniles. So I was very proud to sponsor and pass Ban the Box, which helps folks, they don't, on an initial application, they do not have to claim a criminal history on the initial application. Also, in the last long session, I co-sponsored expungement with Representative Mo Maestas, and that's the right direction to give people a chance that are really trying to recreate their lives in a positive, law-abiding way. I'm also on Senate Education, as well as Senate Judiciary. So certainly, I'm very much involved with education policy. For the person that mentioned plastics, and Carol, yes, I actually have a bill to outlaw styrofoam in our state, and it's ready to go. I couldn't introduce it last time because it was a short session, but this next time I will introduce that. I hear everybody about guns and property crime and just all kinds of these issues that we have. I also intend to drop a bill on calling for a racial impact statement on any kind of criminal bill. You know, that folks like to come in with politically expedient enhancements of sentences. So I'm looking forward to working with Tova on that. So basically, I'm just reflecting, I think, as state legislators, you know, we reflect your concerns, and this is, again, so helpful just to get just a bunch of different topics, all of which, boy, resonate with me. There isn't one thing anybody said that is like something that I don't care deeply about. So thank you again for what's such a well-intended meeting. And I look forward to answering questions.
Great. Debbie.
Thank you, and thank you again, and thank you for those of you who are pretty new to either the ward or to participating in democratic politics. So I appreciate you being here today. I want to start with echoing Senator O'Neill's. There's not an issue that you all have raised that doesn't resonate with me and that I'm not supportive of. As I said in my introduction, because of my history and because there is so little healthcare expertise in the House or Senate, I take a strong role more directly in healthcare policy. And I chair the Health and Human Services Committee and co-chair the Interim Health and Human Services Committee. I also sit on Judiciary in the House and in the Interim Courts, Corrections, and Justice. And I look at healthcare broadly. So particularly the issues around the environment and climate change, I think are essential, because if we don't have a healthy environment, a healthy climate, we don't have healthy communities, we don't have healthy families. I also look at health being economic health of our families. So the economic issues and the income disparity and so forth are important, because again, the social determinants of health are well known and obvious, and if we don't correct that inequality, we can't raise up the health care and the health and well-being of so large a segment of our population. And so that resonates really well. But specifically for me on the kinds of legislation that I've run, I sponsored the domestic violence gun bill to remove guns from domestic violence perpetrators. I've been a sponsor of the Health Security Act. I believe strongly in increasing access to health care for all, to get as close to universal coverage and access as we can possibly get. And you will see me sponsor all kinds of things that may be parallel or different than that. So I also sponsored work to study Medicaid buy-in and a commission on an all claims database. I'm unabashedly pro-choice, And I've also been a really strong sponsor, and it's a very passionate thing for me, of sponsoring medical aid in dying. And I will be bringing that back again this year. Senator O'Neill has helped participate in that. And I do a lot of work around health insurance and changes to our insurance code, and in holding insurance companies accountable, pharmaceutical companies accountable. With my mantra is always increased access to affordable quality care. And so we have to have access. It has to be affordable, and it has to be high quality. I am a physical therapist by training and background, and also a non-practicing inactive attorney who had specialized in health law. A former cabinet secretary under Governor Richardson. I was the cabinet secretary for aging and long-term services. Most of my clinical career was in geriatrics. I've worked in every healthcare setting I think that there is. And I currently, for the last 10, 12 years, have been the executive director for the New Mexico Medical Insurance Pool. It's created in the 80s, and well before we had the Affordable Care Act. It's how people with pre-existing conditions could get coverage. And we still are in existence and cover undocumented. As you may not be aware, undocumented have no option to even purchase insurance in the marketplace. No one will sell to them. So they are uninsurable. So we cover people who are uninsurable or high risk complex health conditions who don't qualify for Medicaid and don't have other access to insurance. So I have, I've been immersed, as I said, in healthcare for 45 years in one way or another. And so that's where I take my focus of what I do personally on legislation, but I am a strong supporter on all the issues that you have raised today. I'm a solid vote in support of all those initiatives. So thank you very much. I look forward to the questions.
All right, Cynthia.
Okay. Well, I sort of gave a thumbnail sketch in my introduction. I thought that was all the time we had to talk, but I just to elaborate a little bit. As I say, we are just beginning to ride this wave into renewable energy transition. And for our agency, that means implementing rules that will make this happen on the ground. And already last week, I saw an article in the paper about PNM saying that they want to spend $450 million on transmission and distribution upgrades. And what I think is a real endemic problem at the commission that I've seen going on as long as we've had elected commissioners is just reacting to problems or reacting to utility companies rather than sitting down and either planning with them, but making sure we know what they're going to do before they come in and say, oh, can we have a yes or no on this $450 million enterprise we want? So I had initiated a rulemaking, actually it was an inquiry proceeding a couple of years ago into the practices of utilities as they procure new sources of energy. And a notice of inquiry is a proceeding you have to determine whether or not you should do a rulemaking, and we did. So we had started a rulemaking, and that was proceeding through, and we were about to have a hearing. We'd written a draft rule, issued a notice of proposed rulemaking, a NOPR, and gotten comments back as the process requires. And we were about to have a hearing when the majority, these three commissioners, voted to cancel that rulemaking with no comment, except by one who said he just didn't see the value of it. And the problem is, in the next decade, there will be a need for a lot of expensive transmission facilities to be built. But there are new technologies and techniques to employ that can minimize that cost by using other tools, such as things like smart meters. Instead of building transmission lines that are going to have to carry more energy to more places, more residents, you can reduce the need for building facilities if you reduce the need for so much generation by using smart meters, which can, for example, turn your air conditioner off for 2 minutes every hour in the summer heat. Things like that, shaving the peak load of users on the utility system can save hundreds of millions of dollars. And so that's just one example, smart meters. There are so many other technological options, not the least of which is battery technology, battery storage technology. And I had introduced a rule and got that passed when I first started in 2017, which required all the monopoly investor-owned utility companies to consider using battery storage technology in their integrated resource plans that they have to provide to us every 3 years that explain what resources they're going to use for the next 20 years. Those are generally very vague. We are not required to approve them. They just show them to us and we file them. And it's really not enough for us to know what they're planning to do going forward. But at least we got that rule passed. They did have to start looking and thinking about battery technology. And battery technology can be an incredible enabler of renewable sources and energy efficiency, which means not building any more resources. That's the low-hanging fruit of having clean energy. So as I mentioned, there is a split, and I would like to put that in a larger context of competence of commissioners. For the past 20 years, we've been electing commissioners, but for 55 years before that, we appointed them ever since 1945 when we started the agency. And I had the privilege of working at the agency. It was called the Public Service Commission then, at a time when they were appointed commissioners. And it was a very different agency from what we have today. It was very competent. Staff was top-notch. The commissioners were very knowledgeable. And, it was just a well-functioning place. A lot of the decisions were not overturned so much by the Supreme Court like we have now. And by the way, if you don't know how the PRC operates, it's like a little court system. Whenever the monopolies come in and they want to raise their rates, they make a huge filing of their request with supplementary documentation that just fills boxes. And it's the initiation of a lawsuit, basically. We have 6 hearing examiners who function like judges, like district judges, except with a very narrow scope of jurisdiction. And we have court reporters. We use the rules of evidence that are employed in district court. It's like a court system. And appeals from our decisions go directly to the state Supreme Court. So we sit like an appellate court, really. I forgot my train of thought, but anyhow, competence. Since we started electing commissioners, we've been overturned a lot by the Supreme Court. And we've had scandals and corruption issues. And I think we really need to go back to the way it was. When I worked there at a time when they were appointed, there was a utility economist from New Mexico State there, which has a program where they give people master's degrees in how to be utility employees and leaders. So there was a utility economist, there was a utility attorney, and then there were only 3, and there was a gentleman I don't remember very well who had a lot of business acumen, business experience. They all served at large, the whole state. So you don't have commissioners coming in from their district saying, well, I'm just here to represent my people, for example, or the ranchers or whatever. And our districts are very gerrymandered too. So, it doesn't work. We've had too much political influence at the commission on the commission and also upon the commissioners. And I think there's too much at stake with climate change and with the big decisions we have coming toward us now on how to really roll out the implementation. This is a time when we really need to have experts on staff, and I can tell you people don't want to work at our agency because of our reputation. And we don't have the funding to pay people who would otherwise be interested in coming. And since the higher level jobs have to be approved by a majority of the commission, I'm here to say we've rejected applications, 3 excellent applications for the utility division director of people who knew a lot about storage technology, which we're ignorant of on the commission, by this majority. They just didn't want those people. It's very discouraging. We need to get back to a process that will allow for commissioners to be people who understand the industry, understand the underpinning disciplines that they have to apply. When they were first elected, the requirements were you had to be 18 years of age, a state resident, and not a felon. And I remember a 7-year period when I was working at the commission. Oh, and by the way, I worked there at the PSC for a year. Many years later in my career, I went back because I thought, oh, that was a great place to work. I'll go back. But it wasn't because they were elected then. Again, I lost my train of thought, sorry. But in any case, we need to return to a process where we can get competency on the commission. And with the, in the November election, there will be a resolution on the ballot for voters to approve to return to appointing commissioners. And it won't be just plain appointment by the governor. That's what we used to have. It would be a committee created from, you know, members of the legislature, some from the governor's office and some from the public, to vet applications and give a short list to the governor. That's similar to how the Office of Superintendent, how our Superintendent of Insurance is picked. And I think that could provide a lot of protection for, you know, for the choices the governor has to make. I mean, a good vetting process. So you get people with the right temperament, people with the right credentials, the right understanding of the industry and so forth. So I would really strongly urge you to vote for that. I know a lot of people say, well, you never want to take away people's right to vote. But in this case, you know, we've seen, it's been amply demonstrated that people don't generally understand what the PRC does. It's a down ballot race and they pick people they like. But those are people who aren't necessarily the well-qualified ones to run. And honest, I'm here to say the people who I have come to know as I've been a regulator and been an attorney. Oh, I might have been starting to say I worked at the Public Regulation Commission too as an attorney advising the commission more recently. And that's how I got this insight into this problem. So I have gotten to know a lot of the commissioners, former and current, and people I'd like to see be commissioners. And those people do not want to run for public office. So this is a terrible situation. We are not getting the people we need in that office. And so please vote yes on that resolution because we've got to save this agency. There's too much at stake with climate change. You know, if it wasn't for climate change, I'd say, well, I don't know, schlep through somehow. We need to get some better standards somehow in picking them. But in this case, I think it's really, really important. So please vote yes on that. And then otherwise, please remember what I said before about, you know, the need to have transparency into utilities actions before they do them. So they don't come in and say, oh, this is all we've done. We've decided to build all these projects ourselves. When they do that, they get to throw on roughly 10% interest in general. I mean, we approve whatever profit they make, but they generally put on, they add to whatever the cost of the project is, their profit that they want to make. They're entitled to a reasonable opportunity to make a profit. They're not entitled to a guaranteed profit. But so we don't always give them what they ask for in rate cases. But
Cynthia,
there is a choice to be made going forward here, which is utilities can either build their own projects, their own solar projects and their own battery storage projects, or they can buy them from companies that build those projects themselves and sell the electricity or the battery service to the utility. And those companies bear all the risk of capital investment themselves. So therefore, we don't have to reimburse P&M or Southwest Service, Power Public Service for their shouldering the risk of capital investment because they don't have to make it. And that makes the cost 10% lower right there. So that's, wait, I'll stop now. That what you want me to do?
Yeah,
Okay.
I just want to get to questions for folks.
Okay.
All right. So Paul, you're the first one on the chat for questions. Do you want to just mention your question?
Sure. My question is for Senator O'Neill and Representative Armstrong. So fracking is both economically and environmentally unsustainable. So it is a long-term risk to worker health and safety and a long-term economic and environmental liability to the state of New Mexico. It's a worker safety issue because the fracking wastewater contains unidentified chemicals as well as radium because it's being pumped up from underground. Trucks hauling fracking wastewater, processed water, have been detected as carrying radioactive waste at truck stops. And so that's a long-term health and safety issue for the workers. Fracking is only economically viable when the price of oil is about $45 or $50 a barrel. It's now about half that. So it's a house of cards. And when these companies go out of business, New Mexico is liable for cleaning up the waste and dealing with the health and safety problem. So my Senator Antoinette Cedillo-Lopez has proposed a 4-year moratorium on new fracking permits in New Mexico to give us time to study these issues. If that makes it to the floor of the legislature, will you support that proposal? Thank you.
Yes, I will.
Yes, and then for me, I was frustrated because it didn't make it to the floor last time, so I look forward to voting yes on that on the floor. I will say I did sponsor an oil and gas related bill and got a real taste of the pushback. What I did is for the land office, I sponsored a bill to increase the royalties on oil and gas, and you would have thought that I was asking for the doom of the oil industry, and it was quite an experience. So I'm used to going up against the oil and gas industry. So thank you for the question.
Thank you both very much.
Muriel, can you read your question? You're on mute.
Tell her again.
You're still on mute, Muriel.
Okay, sorry. Okay, I'm very happy to have you people representing our district because I think your hearts and heads are in the right place. We in our ward are extremely strongly behind having a democratic resolution to support community solar. I'm just asking you as experienced legislators, what should we do to get the damn thing passed? I mean, we know in general, what we have to do. But do you have any insider tips you could give us? Apparently the last time it almost passed, but it was the co-ops that were against it. Is there any way we can get this going forward? It's such a small amount of electricity production anyway. So any advice to us?
My advice would be to keep doing it. And again, we're going to have a much different Senate. I was very aware that bill got hung up in committee, as did Representative Antoinette Cedillo's other bill that we just talked about. So keep at it. We're going to have a much different conservation committee than we have had. And so I'm confident it will pass. I know from my ban the box bill, which is kind of like the thing I'm probably most proud of. It took years to get that across the finish line, but I'm very hopeful about community solar this time around.
Okay. Do your colleagues seem to support that in general? I mean, do you think there's a majority of the Senate that would support that bill?
Yes.
Or are we looking at a few?
there's been a dynamic where important bills get hung up, killed in committee, and they don't advance to the floor. So I'm very confident if it advanced to the floor, it would get through.
Okay, thank you. And Deb, what do you think about the House?
I think we have a good chance in the House. Also, we've gotten, I think the House has moved more and more to the left in our newer elected, and so I'm hopeful in the House. The Senate was the problem.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. That's very helpful.
Tova, can you?
Yes, I already got Representative Armstrong's reply that she would co-sponsor Antoinette Cedillo Lopez. I got her name backwards. Bill to prevent ICE from making arrests at courthouses. So, Senator O'Neill, I guess the question then is for you.
Yeah, sign me up.
Okay.
That's an easy one.
Thank you very much.
And we're getting a little bit of distortion. If folks who are not speaking can just put your speakers on mute, that would be helpful. And then Alex. Are you there, Alex?
Sorry, it's on mute. So as we all know, as a result of COVID and the failure of our Congress for months and months to do anything about it, we're about to face a economic depression and unemployment situation which we haven't seen since the Great Depression. What steps can the state take to mitigate this issue?
Well, one thing we were able to do during the interim, and this was in response to Carlos's question about this, and I'm not sure if my chat thing is working, so my apologies, but we passed Senate Bill 3, which is the Small Business Recovery Act. So what that is businesses can get a loan of up to $75,000, not due for 3 years. Like the interest rate is like 1/2 of the prime, just very, very modest interest. And that was our way. I think the bill has 400,000 in it. That was our way of as a state addressing this problem. I think I really am proud of our governor for handling this COVID the way she is. When I look at that national map, we're still pale yellow, as opposed to, which we need to do better, but as opposed to the deep red of Texas, and God knows what's going on in Arizona, and even Colorado has a higher positivity rate. So I will defend this governor till the cows come home. She's following the science, and we will continue hopefully as a legislature to follow the science and resist this crazy anti-mask thing that seems to permeate our more rural parts of the state.
Not the disease I'm worried about, it's the economic response.
Right, and that's what I said. Senate Bill 3, it was an attempt to deal with the economic response. As a beginning, it was an interim measure. We were only there for 3 days, but we'll continue to sponsor bills like that.
I would add that while we didn't address it in the special session, there is a lot, I think, being developed around homelessness and housing and rent protection and different working against foreclosures. So I think there's work going on among a number of legislators who are planning to bring proposals. So we didn't see it in the special, and it's not my particular, it's not that it's not my area of interest, but not my area of expertise in what legislation I sponsor. But I know that there are proposals during the interim. In the interim, Health and Human Services, we are going to be hearing about homelessness, food insecurity, and other more social determinants of health and economic well-being as part of our interim work.
Muriel. You're on mute again.
The last session, there was some trial to get the abortion legislation that's in effect in New Mexico to be repealed. Unfortunately, even my Democratic representatives have said things like, well, I don't really like it because I really don't like your third trimester abortion and all this. Well, you know what? All we really want to do is have women in New Mexico have the same rights that they have under the federal law right now. What the heck is happening, Deb? This is more your area. Can't we get that repealed?
So
again, the Senate, okay,
Senate,
it died in the Senate, House Bill 51.
Oh, okay.
There were 8 Democrats that voted against House Bill 51. I think at least 6 of them are no longer there. So
they lost, yeah, they
yes,
lost
they
their
lost
primaries.
because of that bill, among other reasons.
Beautiful. Okay, that's good
So
news. Thank you, Deb.
We have to get, though, on those races, those Senate races that took out the incumbents who were blocking that bill in particular, we have to get them elected. So they've all got strong races, but that's where it held up. We've started that in the Senate this last time because we could get it in the House. We knew the Senate was going to be a problem.
Okay, thank you. That's good.
Carlos. And you're on mute.
Thank you. After that, I wanted to say that in part, Senator Neal's answered, some of my question. And honestly, given the audience, a lot of these questions are more for everyone than they are just for our legislators, because I really feel like so many issues in our community have been, left on their own for so many years. And I think that for me, the core issues of poverty remain. All the years that I've been here, it has been a struggle to see how we have not gotten better at managing the issues supporting the poor, low income, supporting our educational system, which includes, of course, the lack of health care and insurance for our community. So, the last strike of difficulty for folks has been with the COVID, but it's been ongoing forever and ever. And that's really been a disappointment to me. And I'll be honest with you, I've worked in the community for 30 years, and I haven't been real active with the party because I've been really disappointed with the response of the party to our communities who are kind of like out in the darkness out there. And so I've worked directly in the community addressing food, addressing development and distribution, working with farmers markets for a long time, working with young people, youth, actually run a farm program in the community. So for me, it's been, really involved with direct work. And one of the things I see, and I know you all know this as you do your reading with the COVID response, is we've lost some 300, almost 400 businesses in the state. And that is tragic. And they're all small businesses. We've relied way too long on national sources of income, on oil and gas, to our detriment. And now we're in a place where we don't have any local potential for creating and developing, expanding our resources because they just aren't there. Production, manufacturing, all of that good stuff, all localized. And so that's something that I'd like to see us look at in the community. And I'm working with a small group in the Southeast Heights to look at small cooperatives as an alternative to trying to amass big amounts of money, localize our money, localize our resources, create small cooperative enterprises that could include support for small businesses, small entrepreneurs who want to get up and get going again. And I agree with Alex that we're headed to massive economic catastrophe in this country. And I've seen it coming for years. This COVID just sped it up for us. So now what do? How do we consider our involvement with creating local sources of income, economy, and support? Because, people are struggling now. It's going to get worse. And with the morass and the mess at the national level, it's going to be up to us in the state to find ways to support our community. So those are the general questions that I have. And as you see, I wrote a whole bunch more down.
That's good.
That you can read about, because I'm very specific around my concerns with immigrants, the poor, insurance, creating access, creating involvement for people to be resourced locally and maintain those resources. Because traditionally, historically, that's what saved New Mexico, and we've lost that focus. So that's it.
Carlos, if you could, and I know I speak for Representative Armstrong, can you keep us posted on your wonderful advocacy? Because I don't know all this. I don't know what you've been doing. Keep me posted, okay? I mean, I'm sure I know of certain projects that you're involved with. I know the community gardens off Griegos is something that Representative Armstrong and I are both supportive of. But if you can let us know, that really helps. And I just love all of your questions, and Alex too. Just keep communicate with us about your concerns, because that's where we can really respond. Okay, so
Yes.
that's just a question. And then
keep it coming.
And Jared would have our emails, and if I can, like we both have re-elections, right? Deborah, you have an opponent, right? So there's ways, if we can communicate with your wonderful active ward, there are ways that you can get involved with Cynthia's campaign, also just volunteer opportunities. So that would be great, because the Republicans, look, they've got all this money from Trump this time around, okay? Like I've already seen billboards kind of targeting incumbent Democratic state legislators. So they've got a bunch of money, and so we don't take anything for granted. So we're going to really need your efforts, okay?
Right.
Absolutely.
And then David Wood, you had a question.
Sure. Deborah has already responded to me, but I asked Representative Armstrong if she was familiar with 3 bills that then State Senator Tim Keller introduced as a senator surrounding health impact assessments for certain state entities. And I believe these bills bear merit. And I had asked her if she would review these bills and see if they might be retooled and perhaps reintroduced. So that was my question to Representative Armstrong, and I hope we get a chance to get to my question for Cynthia as well.
And if I can just add, I would like to see those. I'm not familiar with them. I am interested, have been interested for years in an initiative in the legislature in particular about health and all policies, and so a health review of any kind of proposed legislation. But I will say I'm stepping back from that just a tad in favor of a racial justice assessment of all policies, because I think it encompasses the social determinants and healthcare more broadly. And so if that's what we could put forward, and I think there's some movement on that, maybe now's the time's right, because if you're going to look at the social justice around any policy, it will encompass healthcare as well.
Yes, it does. Thank you.
And so we are going a little bit over time, but we do have a couple more questions here. So if everyone's cool with continuing, that would be great. But you did have a question for Cynthia Hall, David?
Yes, I did. Very quickly, Cynthia, talking about competition in electrical providers. In the state of Texas, electrical individual consumers have the choice of selecting their electric utility based on the current rate per kilowatt hour. Why is there no competition in our state for electricity?
Well, actually, and I wrote you back an answer to everybody too, so you could see it, but I don't know why previous commissions hadn't decided it, but we actually did pass a law like that in 1999 or 2000 to sort of like Texas is. Texas, it's a monopoly. They own the entire supply chain, the generation, transmission, and distribution of the product. Some states, a number of states, including New Mexico, back in the time when these laws were first coming when this kind of restructuring of the industry occurred, passed laws. New Mexico did that, but we only restructured the utility at the level of generation. In other words, we passed a law that stripped the utilities of ownership of the generation sources. But we never implemented it because California started experiencing blackouts and brownouts. They were the first state to do that. So our legislature changed their mind and withdrew the law. Let's see, what's the word? Repealed the law. So we never really implemented it. But we did do it once. And there are about 18 states now that do that at some level. Either they have taken away ownership of just the generation level, or at Texas, for example, has made every level competitive: generation, transmission, and retail sales. So that, you know, I think rates overall are somewhat lower, but there is a kind of a downside to it. And I've asked several commissioners from other states where it is done, like the chair of the commission of Pennsylvania and a chair in Texas. And both of them had said, well, the problem is scammers, because, you know, they'll come to your door and try to sell retail electricity to you, and you don't know how to compare them very well. So, you know, you need to have a pretty strict, clear law, and with a lot of guardrails around competitors, and an education effort. States that have been able to implement this kind of competition have had to phase it in over time so as to develop the understanding among the population about how to shop. Basically, they have to educate them. So you can't just do it overnight. But I've asked that question because I've often thought, this is a nightmare. You know, we spend so much time and energy and money and human capital just trying to litigate these cases with the utilities, who are clawing for every last dime they can get, when, you know, technology today absolutely permits competitive markets. And that is what we should be doing. Frankly, I think it's probably the only thing we would agree with on this commission, but it's not up to, we would, I can tell you that, we would agree on that point. But the legislature has to pass a law, and I'm certain the utilities would resist it, because they lose that 10%, you know, guaranteed rate of return on their capital investments. It's not a guaranteed rate of return. It's a guaranteed opportunity to earn the rate of return. But a lot of times they forget that. So it would be nice, but right now I just like to see them behave enough so we can get to 100% clean energy. And then, it's, you know, it hardly matters after that, as long as we can get clean. And because the clean sources are the cheapest sources. It would be nice to have competition, frankly it would, because it would open up a lot more innovation. That would be better. But that's a fight that the legislature will have to deal with, and you'll have to fight. The commission regulates broadband services to everybody in the state, and including rural areas, and so we can, and the deployment of broadband in rural areas is really bad. So that implicates deficits in telemedicine and education during the pandemic. I just want to toss that out because I know probably the other legislators are hearing about that. So they're the ones who probably need to talk about that more than me.
We've got 3 more people in the queue. So these are going to be the last questions. A couple of the people might have 2 questions, but if you, the 3 people we've got Roger, we've got Carlos, and we got Alex. So if you have more than 1 question, just kind of incorporate it all into one, and then we'll finish up the question and answer section. So why don't we start with Roger first?
Okay, so the questions here are from me and Liz. And because we're on the same screen. And my question is to Representative Armstrong and Senator O'Neill. Do you support legislation? And this is kind of related to David Wood's theme, legislation that would authorize local governments to purchase energy on behalf of their residents and businesses. That's called choice aggregation. And it was in the 2019 legislature. But anyway, that's my question. And okay, that's for our questions.
I need to get more information on that, but it sounds great. Can you tell me who sponsored it in 2019? Anyway, I mean, it's just, some of these issues I need to get. Who?
Shendo and
Benny Shendo. Okay, sure.
the person that I can't remember. But I
No,
have
that's fine. But I mean, that helps me out, Benny Shendo, and definitely. Okay.
Yeah, and I will do, I'll pull the bill also if I can go to Benny Shendo's and pull it. Need a little more information. It sounds right, and I've got a great relationship with Senator Shendo. I did not have an opportunity to hear that bill in any committee or on the floor of the House. So without knowing the detail, I'd like to learn more. I will tell you something that I have supported in the House, and I wish we could move it forward, is solar cooperatives. But I know that's not what you're talking about, but I do think we need to get more energy out there locally so I'm interested in looking at that, and I'll pull the bill and the analysis on it.
Thank you, Representative Armstrong. Our ward is also supporting community solar gardens, which are solar co-ops. We're supporting both together in one resolution.
Great. Wonderful. Thank you.
All right. Carlos?
Oh, okay. I know that there's a question comes up later around the plastics, so I won't bring that up because I think that's a really important issue for us generally, but I don't know what kind of impact that you all could have with our county sheriff with dealing with direct responses to the Black Lives Matter and the ongoing attacks locally on our community by the police and the sheriffs. We've never really resolved totally the Department of Justice and the issues related to the police department. And that's an ongoing concern that, you know, if we're not just going to go out there and say this is a problem, what can we do about it? That's one of the issues. The other one is our county sheriff. I've been reading nationally about county sheriffs and locally looking at our county sheriff and recognize that beyond the issue of the cameras, there have been many settlements resulting in probably some $4 or $5 million with the county sheriffs on excessive force. And generally that position is like, they talked about it being like a kingdom for, you know, police management, that he can do whatever he wants. And I think it's time for us to begin to look at the county sheriff and how we manage that. And I don't know that the legislature can be involved directly, but it's a critical issue for our community because so many of those shootings happen with our community, with our people, communities of color and poor. And so, and I understand that it's also an issue related to homelessness, and that's an issue I'm very involved with too. But I think that, you know, it's time for us to start having that discussion about how do we deal with this? We want concrete actions. That's an action we can take. The other thing is, like I said, going back to community markets, is that, you know, you talk, Senator O'Neill, about the support for small businesses, but, you know, and I know that that's a pittance, right? I mean,
yes. Oh yeah, it's a start,
right? And
yeah,
so we're talking about perhaps 30 to 40% of our community being out of employment for the next few years and businesses unable to pick it up. What is the response? We need to really think about localized employment, localized education, and bumping up supports for our communities. And so that's one issue. The last issue I want to throw out is the King Mine spill. I don't feel like we ever really addressed it. And that is also a huge impact on our health and our well-being and our water safety. So in a lot of ways, I think these issues are all combined, but those are the three that kind of
that's good.
There's so many other issues that we can bring up, right?
I share your, yes, it's a pittance. We had 3 days to come up with that. We're coming on to a full session. Believe me, there'll be a lot of bills introduced to, in a more substantial way, address the very concerns that you and Alex are raising. Okay, so I was just really encouraged that we were able to get bipartisan buy-in on with a 3-day session to pass a bill as a start, to help to directly address the small business stuff. When is this sheriff up for re-election? Next year? And is he term limited? I mean, is he going to run for re-election? I mean, this guy needs to go.
His days are numbered.
Yeah.
Yeah, the biggest thing we can do on the sheriff is elect him out. I mean, we have to, and he's not the only one.
Exactly.
There are sheriffs around the state who are thumbing their noses at at COVID and what we need to do with that. They're thumbing their noses at enforcement of the gun laws and of cameras, lapel cameras, and on and on. And unfortunately, our sheriff, I think, is right with them on those. So if there's not, I don't know that there's a lot we can do at the legislature because they're separately elected. And so, but we need to do whatever we can, particularly around electing sheriffs.
Well, I think the larger issue is the powers that are associated with being a county sheriff. And I don't know if that's the purview of the state or the purview of the county, but we have to begin to address that and, make radical changes in the kind of decision-making that's allowed to the county sheriffs, because it's just out of control.
Well, they're separately elected, so that's the problem. They have existing authority, and I'm not quite sure. Tova might have a better idea what we can do about sheriffs, but they are elected officials, and so the city can't boss them around, the county commission can't boss them around, the governor can't boss them around. So
But somewhere along the way, there's a charter, right? There's a charter that establishes powers of the sheriff, and who can influence that, and how do we engage with that process?
And that might be something we look at with the criminal justice reform subcommittee that Tova's real active and I'm real active. I mean, thanks for bringing that up. But yeah, it's just crazy to be powerless over sheriffs.
Yeah.
I think the judiciary could actually intercede. Not sure what form that would take, but yeah, good point.
Okay, so 2 more questions. We got Carol has a question, and then the last one will be to Alex.
Okay, my question is to Senator O'Neill. Could you please describe the bill that you were talking about?
Yes.
Plastic.
And Carol, I understand it's a start. There's, the plastic bags and all. It's a big issue, but there is Maine has a very strong anti-styrofoam lead statute. Like it basically bans all styrofoam. We looked at different states, and that was the one that I personally preferred as a start off point. So that if you're looking at it, and I would love to get your input, and I can include you in the emails when we're working on this legislation, okay? Because I know you know your stuff. So so look at Maine, and if I would welcome your feedback on that.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
And then Alex.
Hi, this is another economic justice issue on 2 wheels. As you know, outside of busing, bicycles are the main form of transportation for low-income people. Last year, they tried to pass House Bill 192, which is a bicycle 5-foot passing rule. It was vetoed by the governor because they had added some crap to the bill.
Right.
Will you guys support a similar bill this term? And
yes,
better writing?
Yes, I supported it before it got amended, but yes.
Yes. Ditto.
Thank you.
All right, I just wanted to thank everyone for asking questions, the candidates for participating in answering the questions. We have went over a little bit, and so the next 2 things that we want to go over as a ward is, first, we want to invite people to volunteer as we are ramping up to the election. So what I'm going to ask folks to do is to enter in the chat if you would like to volunteer between now and the upcoming election. We are looking at most of that volunteer work is going to probably be phone banking, texting, because of the pandemic. It just doesn't really seem to make a lot of sense to actually canvass. I think a lot of people will be very frustrated with that. So one of the interesting things about where we're at, the county has kind of put together kind of a list of candidates that are in very tight races. In discussions with the ward, we've also kind of, we want to also inform voters about like voting early and voting by mail. So, we're looking at probably two aspects of volunteer work. The first, will be, informing, people within the ward about voting early and getting that information out to people. The next would be plugging into what the county's doing, which is ensuring that we're getting some of those candidates in really tight races so we can get more Democrats in the state legislature to ensure that we're passing the kinds of items that we've talked about today. So yeah, if everyone who would be interested in volunteering can just type your name into the chat section so we can look at that, that would be great. What we'll do is we'll reach out to you as we have our specific, what we did to turn out for this event is we just, had a packet of about 30 people and called. And so it's a pretty easy process. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I encourage folks to volunteer. So the next step in the meeting is just going to be us talking about the ward and the work we're doing. And so I wanted to do a little bit of that. So we did put together like a slide presentation, and I know, I'm not sure if the candidates, when I talked with all the candidates, I said from 3 to 4. So if folks have to leave, I'm not going to fault anyone for having to take off, but you're welcome to stay for the slide. So with about 15 more minutes is what we're looking at, and so I'm just going to jump into that.
Well, thank you, Jared. I have to go, but what a great, this is awesome. Good job to everyone, and please follow up with us, okay? As candidates, we need your help. So thank you. I have to go apologetically, but good job. Excellent.
Thank you, and I probably need to go too. And just a couple closing. Thank you for organizing this, and for all of you for caring enough to participate today. As far as volunteering in general across all races, we just need GOTV. If people vote, and in this district in particular, if we get our Democrats out to vote, we're fine. So I support you, all of you, working on those tight races. My job in supporting those tight races is to raise the money. So I've been trying to do that, and I've been sending them money from my campaign and leadership PAC to try and help them. And we can't walk for them this time around. So I encourage you to support those tight races, and thank you, Paul, for putting those up there. Those for here are indeed the tight ones. We have to keep our incumbents that won those seats in swing districts, and we have to, in the Senate, keep get elected those who unseated incumbents in the primary. Those are really important. But just calling to even get out the vote early, absentee vote, whatever we can do to get people out to vote. That's what we need here, is just getting people out to vote. And others may need more focused work. So thank you all for for volunteering and for caring about this. My contact information's online. Jared's got it. He's got my phone number. He's got my email. Feel free to pass it out. I'm happy to take anybody's call, have more conversation about any of this. So thank you very much for today, and let's stay in touch. Thank you.
Good
And
job.
I'm gonna go.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
I'm going to go too, but I also wanted to say thank you very much. It's always wonderful to see people who really care, get together and put their minds together and really want to talk about issues and how to make them better. It's just really encouraging as a candidate to see that happen. And I really appreciate everybody. So I need volunteers too. Chatted with a couple of people here, mostly for texting and phone banking. So I really appreciate help. But I just really appreciate this whole discussion. I've had to restrict my comments to just my stuff, but honestly, I'm just so glad to hear the discussion about police brutality, income inequality, which just perpetrates itself. So many things going wrong that would be improved with a Democrat administration from top to bottom in this country. So I'm just cheered to hear everybody care so much about it. So thanks a lot. And I'll see you guys again, I'm sure, somewhere on the campaign trail. Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Thank you. Bye.
Oh, all right. So I'm going to just jump into kind of a slide presentation that we have, and it's going to just talk about what the ward's been working on. I just want to let everyone know our next ward meeting is going to be September 13th. It's on a Sunday from 3 to 5. We typically do monthly ward meetings and work on a lot of these issues. And so I'm going to just share screen here with this slide presentation, and so just give me 1 second while I do that. And okay, and let me expand that out a little bit, I think. Well, maybe Zoom's impacting it from going onto the whole screen. We've been working.
Jared, try clicking at the top on slideshow.
Oh, okay. Will that do it?
It used to. Maybe not.
Here, I'm gonna Zoom. I think is causing some.
Oh, okay.
Some issues with it. I'm gonna just try something really quick with it, and I don't know. I mean, typical things that would work aren't working on that, so we'll just share it and it'll work. Okay, so so we believe in grassroots activism, and so we've worked on a number of items, and so we work on our goal is to energize voters within the county. We believe in social justice, including race, gender, class, national origin. Focusing on issues of economic justice, environmental justice, and world peace. Some of the things that we've worked on, particularly in the ward, we worked on, we put forward a couple of resolutions. We're concerned about voter suppression, institutional racism. I'm glad that we were able to talk about that in our question and answer section with the candidates. Again, wealth and income inequality is a huge issue of ours, border injustice, and the climate crisis. So traditional democratic issues, those are, but we believe in the ward that in order to make changes on these things, we have to be active locally to engage with our politicians to make sure that, you know, we can shape these things. So the things that we have worked on over the past year, voter registration, about a year ago, the ward worked really heavily on that. We won a competition within the county about like out of all the wards, we registered the most voters. So, you know, we are a very active ward. We meet monthly to figure out the things that we're working on. So we've developed our own environmental caucus. Muriel, one of our ward members, participates in a Senate working group for the community. There's about like 71 groups involved in that. So our ward is also involved in that. We are working on solar legislation, which is part of our first step on that is drafting resolutions. So wards can draft resolutions to the Democratic Party, and we get that in the party platform. So it gives us more leverage to actually put pressure on candidates. And the goal is this legislative session is that we will be active on 2 of our resolutions that we're working to have the county support, and then the state platform support. And the first is community solar and community choice aggregation. So essentially just pushing that solar energy out to the community, and then the right of counsel and deportation proceedings. You know, so getting out the vote, you know, registering voters, that's definitely something that we've already done. And our focus as we come forward will be educating voters for the election, of course, turning out voters. But even on some of these issues, we're going to want to be educating voters. And so community solar, this has been something that we've been really working on and delved into. And, you know, that's why I'm glad Cynthia Hall was able to come and talk, is that she, you know, as a public regulation commission person, works on these issues. We are pushing for community solar, which would be like having solar farms. And, you know, unlike somebody who buys solar panels for their house, you know, there are a number of people who just can't do that, whether you live in an apartment or you live, you know, maybe your roof doesn't support it, you know, there's just a number of reasons, or just the cost of it. But by having community solar, it would be a way for people to kind of step into supporting that supporting renewable energy by choosing that with their local energy bill. And so and then the other is community choice aggregation. And, you know, we really kind of call it community choice, which is empowering local governments to buy energy for you know, producing their own energy. And we believe, like, say, the city of Albuquerque could produce energy, you know, have solar panels, put them on their buildings and that kind of thing, and allow people to buy into that. And so all of these kind of deal with kind of the regulation of energy. And so it's going to take legislation to get this stuff passed. And that's the things that we're working on. And then let's see, community solar. Okay, I think we kind of discussed that. And then voter education, community votes, to make sure that everyone votes is counted. Yeah, I mean, I think this is pretty straightforward. I think everyone who's participating, we want to see everyone go out and vote. I think my cornerstone view on is with this election is it's not just about Trump, it's about the down ballot races. You know, a lot of these folks nationally and throughout, even in New Mexico, we've got another number of candidates that have enabled the president. And I think we just have to send a universal message up and down the ticket that it's just unacceptable. And so join us to assert community control over the power of our homes and businesses, ensure lower prices for energy, to avoid climate catastrophe, and to help pave the road for economic and environmental justice. Let's see, so I'm going to pass this on to Tova and have you talk about, Tova drafted the right of counsel in deportation proceedings, a resolution. And Tova, would you be able to talk a little bit about that?
So the point of this, let's see, am I unmuted? Yes. The point of this resolution is to influence our senators and representatives in the federal system to introduce a bill in Congress, and that is that back in 1963, the US Supreme Court ruled in a famous case called Gideon versus Wainwright that people who are charged with a crime who are indigent have a right to appointed counsel, and that's why we have public defender systems. And back in the 70s, they said that was true even in misdemeanor cases. So the law is all across the United States that somebody who's facing even one day in jail, who can't afford a lawyer, has a right to appointed counsel. But because deportation is considered a civil matter instead of a criminal matter, even people who are afraid they'll be killed if they're deported, and this can be people who are here legally and have green cards, or people who are in any other kind of immigration proceeding. It can include children who can't possibly represent themselves, people who don't speak English, and certainly people who have no idea about what the immigration law is. Those individuals do not have a right to appointed counsel, even if they are indigent and can't afford counsel. So the three things that this resolution asks for are, one, to establish that if the United States government is trying to deport someone and they're indigent, that they have a right to appointed counsel. Secondly, to set up a system kind of like the Federal Criminal Justice Act, which sets up the federal public defender offices, which is a place where I used to work, to set up offices of immigration lawyers to do this work, and thirdly, to fund it. So it does seem to me that if the United States government is trying to deport somebody, they should have a right to counsel if they can't afford that. And this last year, under the Trump administration, we've seen the horror of an immigration judge asking a one-year-old child in diapers, oh, you understand that you have these rights and these rights. This is totally crazy. So we need to we need to have appointed counsel for people who are facing deportation as a right, and we need to have a system to provide that and fund that system. So again, this resolution is aimed at asking our 2 senators and 3 representatives from New Mexico to introduce and support legislation to do that at the federal level.
All right. Well, thank you, Tova. And so, that's, when we look at the things that we stand for as a ward, we, think of, kind of the global situation when we think of the environment, when we think of, folks that should be represented here in the country who are being deported, and how that all impacts us as a country. And so and so I guess, those are some of the values that we stand for. And I was just wanted to just hear from everybody here. Are there things that you would like to, see worked on, or would like to work on to impact change?
Well, Jared, I thought your idea of people writing in the chat what they wanted to work on was a pretty good idea. Then we would, you know, maybe we should maybe leave it at that at this point, since we are over a bit, unless people have specific questions or something like that. I'm just suggesting.
That's true. We did go over quite a bit. So if there are some things that you would like to work on, or, you know, would like to, you know, feel free to include that in the chat. And I think I'm also open to any questions about the ward. But I also want to respect everyone's time as well. All right. Well, let's, I think we can, I just want to thank everyone for attending, and just want to also let folks know about our next ward meeting, which is August 13th from
September, Jared.
Thank you. September 13th. We just had our ward meeting this month. September 13th on a Sunday from 3 to 5. And encourage folks to attend. And I think that's really all the things that we wanted to cover.
And tomorrow evening we'll have an environmental caucus meeting, Jared?
Yeah, we can do that. Yeah, I forgot to mention that. We do have our environmental caucus meetings on Mondays at 7. If you're interested in attending that, definitely reach out to us, and you're welcome to attend that as well.